Hello friends, welcome to StudyIQ. My name is Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathod, and in this video, I will be talking about the story of India's nuclear tests at Pokhran, specifically the Operation Shakti, which was the nuclear test of 1998. So India conducted two nuclear tests in its entire history. One was in 1974 and the other one was in 1998. Both of these tests are very important. One was conducted during the Prime Ministership of Mrs. Indira Gandhi and the other one during the Prime Ministership of Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I will be talking about Operation Shakti mainly, which is the 1998 test. But before delving into the history of India's nuclear weapons, we need to know about the nuclear age or the age of nuclear weapons. First of all, you need to know that nuclear weapons are the first true weapons of mass destruction. Before 1945, there was no weapon invented by humankind that could kill millions of people in just a few minutes or few hours. But with the invention of nuclear weapons, we have entered into a completely different time period. Now, more than 7 nations on this earth have the capability to destroy an entire city, an entire region, or kill crores of people or lakhs of people with just a few bombs. So this is the age of nuclear weapons. The first ever test of a fission atomic bomb had the power that was equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT or trinitrotoluene. So TNT is your traditional, conventional material used for bombing. Before 1945, TNT was the most popular chemical used for the bombs, and even a few tons of TNT could level an entire street or many houses. But now, in the same size of a conventional bomb, few hundred kilograms, you have an atom bomb which can destroy an entire city and not just a road. It is based on the principle of nuclear fission. Now, I don't have time to go into the details of nuclear fission and fusion. If you want, you can write down in the comments. We'll make another video for this. So fission atomic bomb, and another one was the fusion atomic bomb, which is often called as the thermonuclear or hydrogen bomb. This is even more powerful than a fission bomb. The first thermonuclear device that was tested had equivalent of 10 million tons of TNT power. Now a nuclear device is no larger than a traditional bomb, but it can devastate an entire city by blast, fire, radiation. So there are three things by which a nuclear bomb or an atom bomb, as it is commonly called, will kill people. First is the actual blast. Then the energy released by blast will level an entire city and it will kill people first of all. Second, the fire which spreads due to the blast, that will kill more people. And finally, the radiation. The nuclear fission reaction will lead to harmful radiations, and those radiations will lead to genetic changes in people. These changes will deteriorate the quality of life of the citizens nearby, and also it will lead to changes in the next generation. So that has been seen, and in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those are the only two cities in the entire world that have bore the brunt of a nuclear bomb. So USA in 1940s was the first to acquire nuclear bomb, and the Project Manhattan was the project by which they developed the nuclear technology. It was a very secretive project. They were successful in making a nuclear bomb, and they used it during the World War II for Japan to surrender. So on 6th and 9th August 1945, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the two cities of Japan, the two industrial centers of Japan, were bombed. And this photo is from Hiroshima. Here you see this photograph is taken from a plane, and many kilometers below, somewhere here, is the city. You can see the sea behind. So when the bomb was dropped on the city, the huge blast led to plumes of smoke leading up to many kilometers up in the air, and the typical mushroom-shaped cloud that is formed after a nuclear explosion can be seen here. After USSR was the next country to acquire nuclear technology before 1950, and soon enough in the 1950s, UK and France also acquired nuclear power. They also tested their own weapons. In 1964, China became the 5th country of the world to conduct its own nuclear test. And this was the clinching deal. This was the event that clinched the deal for India. Till 1964, India and Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister, they were talking about peaceful efforts in the world. They were against nuclear weapon. They said nuclear technology should be used only to generate electricity and not for weaponization. But the day China acquired the nuclear technology, Indian leadership, Indian scientists, they came to this conclusion that now we also need nuclear weapons. Because China has it, our own neighbor has it, and they can use it on us. Because in 1962, we had been defeated by China. So there was this threat that China would invade sooner or later again, maybe in next 20, 30 years. Although this has not happened, but still the threat is always there. And this led to the development of nuclear program in India. Before going further, I want to tell you that StudyIQ has launched its pendrive and tablet courses for a variety of competitive exams. You can study sitting at your home comfortably using our pendrive courses. Thousands of aspirants have already been benefited by these courses. So if you also want to take the benefit of these courses, there is a sale of up to 50% going on till 15th of May. So hurry up, visit our website studyiq.com or call on these numbers for queries. If you want to get the PDF of this lecture or any of my lectures, you want updates on my videos, or you want to just follow general articles for UPSC or any other competitive exam preparation, you can like this page, facebook.com/mahipalsinghrathod. You will get all the important updates on this page. The story of India's nuclear weapons starts with Homi Jehangir Bhabha. He was a leading physicist. He was one of the most important scientists of that time, 1940s and 50s. So he was the first person in India to think that India needs a nuclear program and we need to weaponize nuclear technology. Because when USA weaponized nuclear technology in 1945, Homi Jehangir Bhabha also pushed Indian leadership even before independence that we need nuclear weapons. Although at that time most of the Indian leadership was having Gandhian philosophy, they were following the Gandhian thoughts. So they thought that no, we don't require nuclear weapons. All we want is a clean and peaceful nuclear technology for electricity generation, because it is a very good source of electricity. Still, Homi Jehangir Bhabha started developing the nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, and he was the founder of two of the most important institutes, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, that is TIFR, and Atomic Energy Establishment at Trombay. Both are situated in Bombay. Trombay is an area in Mumbai. Later on, this Atomic Energy Establishment was named as Bhabha Atomic Research Center after the death of Homi Jehangir Bhabha in his memory. So it is known as BARC today, BARC. You might have heard of this organization sometime. It is a pretty famous establishment. TIFR and BARC are the cornerstone of India's development of nuclear weapons. Now let us have a look at the map of India. I want to show you the location of Pokhran. For nuclear tests, we need a desolate place where there is hardly any population and it should be accessible for logistics, etc. to conduct the tests. So in India, such a location is available only in the heart of Thar Desert in Rajasthan. So the nuclear tests both time in 1974 and 1998 were conducted in the Thar Desert. So this is the Thar Desert of India and even in Pakistan. And if you zoom in further, we come to a place called Pokhran. So Pokhran is a city which is situated halfway between Jaisalmer and Jodhpur, and near Pokhran, just northwest of Pokhran, is Army's testing range. So Pokhran field, this is the Pokhran range. Most of the Army's exercises are also carried out at this place. It's a vast area that is under Army's control. So this is Pokhran testing range, and in this area, this was specifically the place where the nuclear tests were conducted. And the nearest village is Khetolai. Remember this name, I'll tell you why. So as I said, after 1964, when China conducted its first nuclear test, India also started to develop its own nuclear testing. And we started working on that, but Lal Bahadur Shastri, who was the Prime Minister from 64 to 66, he was not in favor of nuclear weapons. He was a staunch Gandhian and he believed in non-violence. So during this time, the progress was a bit slow. But when Mrs. Indira Gandhi came to power, she gave the go-ahead, she gave the green signal to the scientists. But unfortunately, in 1966, Homi Jehangir Bhabha was dead. But the scientists working at BARC and TIFR, they took up the mantle. And by 1974, India conducted its first nuclear test. On 18th May 1974, the day of Buddha Purnima, the birthday of Lord Buddha, that was the day selected for the test. This is Pokhran 1, okay, the first nuclear test. The code word for the success of nuclear test was Smiling Buddha. It is said that the scientists, after the successful test, called up Mrs. Indira Gandhi from the Pokhran site, and they just said that the Buddha has smiled. That was the code word, so that anyone who was listening, CIA or any other spy agency, they would not know what had happened. Now, India called this explosion, this test, as a peaceful nuclear explosive. Now imagine, you are testing a weapon and you are calling it a peaceful weapon. There is nothing peaceful in a weapon. A weapon is a weapon. So still it was called peaceful nuclear explosive because we did not want to antagonize the entire world that India has nuclear power. A country outside the permanent five, outside the P5 members, has nuclear power, because everyone was scared that what would India do with its nuclear weapon. The first nuclear test outside any of the P5 was this test, Pokhran first. And the yield was 12 kiloton, not a very huge bomb by the standards of USA or USSR bombs, but still it was significant. In this picture, we can see the Prime Minister visiting the test site after the successful test. and the government and Prime Minister declared that India did not intend to manufacture nuclear weapons. Although now we have the technology and we have the means to do so, but we will not make nuclear weapons. We will make the nation self-reliant in nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, that is for electricity. But see, the statement that India wanted to give to the world, it was out there. China and Pakistan had got the message that India is a nuclear power now. Do not mess with us. So we had the nuclear power after China, and that was mainly necessary for deterrence. What is deterrence? I will tell you at the end of this lecture. What was the world's reaction to India's nuclear test? First thing, everyone criticized India. All the Western nations criticized India. Then these Western nations formed the Nuclear Security Group, NSG. It was formed after the India's nuclear test. So they formed an organization which restricted the sale of nuclear technology. They said that only the members of NSG group will get nuclear technology. So India was an outcast in the world of nuclear tech. Then NPT was jeopardized. See, non-proliferation treaty was being worked on since 1968. I can't go into the details of the NPT. It will be a separate lecture. If you want this, just write it down in the comments. So NPT was a treaty according to which the nuclear halves, the 5 nations who already had nuclear technology, they wanted to regulate nuclear power. They said that now we have the nuclear weapons, it is okay, but no other country should get nuclear weapons. India was actively working for the NPT, but silently we were also preparing for our nuclear program. And since then, India has been criticized for this. That you talk about non-violence, you talk about Gandhian principles, you talk about NPT, non-proliferation on one hand, and you're yourself conducting nuclear weapons. You yourself are a nuclear weapon state. All the countries, Western nations banned the sale of nuclear technology to India, even nuclear fuel. So India was helped by Canada and USA mainly to set up their earlier nuclear reactors for electricity generations. All those reactors at Rawat, Bhata, Tarapur, they were all set up with the help of Canada, USA and USSR. So they stopped selling nuclear technology. In fact, the nuclear fuel for this 1974 test at Pokhran came from Canada. So we got that fuel by saying we wanted to generate electricity, but we used it for a nuclear test. So Canada also got very angry, and Canada was very helpful with regards to nuclear technology in 1950s and 60s. So we managed to antagonize most of the Western nations which had nuclear technology. But USSR did still help us even in 1970s and 80s. But this embargo by Western nations did hurt India's nuclear prospects. For the next 20 years or so, our nuclear technology did not develop as much because we could not develop much with just our scientists or our indigenous technologies. We did require the latest tech and we were not able to access it. So after the first test was held, why was there a need for second nuclear test? We conducted a successful first test, but that was a technology demonstrator. You see, we just conducted a fission test and showed to the world and even proved for our scientists as well that yes, we can conduct a successful nuclear test. The fission reaction was successful, but the tech was not weaponized. It was not put in a missile, or it was not put in a bomb which could be carried on a plane or which could be put up on a missile and sent anywhere. So the technology was not weaponized and tested. It was just the test of the basic technology, not the weaponization. Also, we needed to test a thermonuclear device, the hydrogen bomb. See, in thermonuclear device, what happens is it is a fission plus a fusion bomb. First, fission takes place, the temperature rises, then the fusion reaction will take place. And fusion reaction is a much more exothermic reaction. The energy released is immense. It is many times that of a fission reaction. That is why thermonuclear bombs are much more powerful than fission devices. So we needed to test this thermonuclear device and also smaller devices, tactical devices. What do you mean by tactical? Again, a small device maybe of 100-200 kg that could be carried on a bomb, dropped on a city, or put on a missile and sent 1000 kilometers away. So these tests were required for real world application. We did not know whether we could weaponize this technology successfully. That is why we needed the second nuclear test. As soon as the first test was conducted, there were plans for second test, but you see, emergency was started in 75. Then Indira Gandhi went out of power in 77. Morarji Desai came to power. He was not interested in nuclear technology. Again, he was also a Gandhian in his thoughts. So after 1980, when Indira Gandhi came back to power, she did not give the go-ahead for nuclear test. Why? Because there were a lot of sanctions already. Again, Rajiv Gandhi was also not interested because of the sanctions. USA was continuously threatening India that if you conduct another nuclear test, we will stop all kinds of other aid to you as well, not just nuclear technology. And later on, finally, PV Narasimha Rao, who came to power in 1991, he was the one who gave the go ahead to our scientists that yes, it is time that we conduct our nuclear test. So in 1995 and 96, 2 times he gave the green signal that yes, go ahead with the test. But by now, USA, especially CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, the spy agency of USA, it was continuously monitoring Indian progress on nuclear technology. They had a spy satellite just for Pokhran. One satellite was always over Pokhran and to detect whether India is doing any activity on the ground, whether any preparations are being made to conduct a nuclear test. So that satellite was always there, and both the times in 95 and 96 when we tried to go ahead with the test, CIA got to know, and America, especially Clinton administration, Bill Clinton was the US president at that time. So he called up PV Narasimha Rao and said that, Mr. Rao, we know that you're going to conduct a nuclear test. Our satellites have already seen that. So please don't go ahead with that. NPT and CTBT both will be jeopardized and we will put further sanctions. So both the times India backed down and we could not conduct the test. Atal Bihari Vajpayee always used to say in his election rallies that if I become the PM, I'll give the go ahead for nuclear test. We will conduct the nuclear test. So he became the prime minister for only 13 days in 1996. In those 13 days only he gave the green signal, but after all he could not be the PM for longer. He had to resign after 13 days. So again in 96 the test could not go ahead. But finally Atal Bihari Vajpayee came back to power in February of 1998. He became the prime minister for the second time, and then he gave the green signal that yes, start the preparations. And in the next 2 months the preparations were done, and on 11th and 13th May 1998, 2 days, 5 tests were conducted. On 11th May, 3 nuclear tests were conducted, and 13th May, 2 further tests were conducted. The scientists who were leading this time were Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our future president. He was the head of DRDO. Raj Gopal Chidambaram, he was the head of Department of Atomic Energy. And Anil Kakodkar, who was the director of BARC at that time. There were many other scientists, but these 3 were the chief. They were the head. This is one of the nuclear bombs, one of the nuclear devices that was tested. You see, it is not much in size. It can easily be loaded on a plane. So finally we weaponized the technology, and this is being lowered into the ground. So these tests were conducted underground. Remember, both the tests were conducted, 74 and 98, both were conducted underground. In 74 there was only 1 test, but this time there were 5 tests. All the tests were underground. A deep well was dug, almost 200 to 300 meters below the ground, and these wells were used for the testing, because if we conducted the test over ground, there was a huge risk of radiation. The radiation risk is multiplied because USA had done that overground testing in its own desert, Sierra Nevada desert, and there were great radiation poisoning, many radiation poisoning cases in 1950s. So we decided to conduct the test underground. Now, what were the challenges for this test? See, CIA had been continuously keeping an eye on Pokhran test site. So India's test preparations had been detected twice before in 95-96. So this time we needed to maintain complete secrecy in order to avoid detection, unless the other countries again pressurize India. Now another problem was that in the desert of Rajasthan, in the Thar desert, there is hardly any vegetation. The bushes are very small and they are very sparse, and even the dunes are not that huge around Pokhran. Around Pokhran the dunes are not very big. So you can't hide much, you can't camouflage much. So if a satellite is over Pokhran, it will see almost anything clearly. As I showed you, even the Google map images are so clear. So USA had better satellites even then. They could, in fact, they had such satellites which could zoom into a level where you could see what is there in the hand of a person. They had such good resolution of the satellites at that time. Indian Army's Corps of Engineer, the 58th Regiment specifically, it was tasked to prepare the test site without giving away anything to the satellites or any other espionage activities. So the 58th Engineer Regiment, which was posted at Pokhran at that time, they started preparing the test site and they took extraordinary measures. First of all, the group of scientists was kept very small. It was a very small group of scientists who were involved in the actual detonation process or the testing. They were required to wear army uniforms to blend in with the army personnel. See, because if you are wearing civilian dresses and you are working around the site, so the satellite can easily detect that there is some civilian, and what is a civilian doing on an army test site? So it gives away everything. So they were wearing army uniforms all the time to preserve the secrecy. Work was done mostly during night, because at night time the satellites are able to see less. All the equipment like trucks, JCBs or digging equipment, that was returned to the original place during the daytime to give the impression that it was never moved. so that no one can detect anything. The sand that was dug out was sent far away, or it was shaped into dunes. It was shaped like a dune so that it looked like it is a natural sand formation and not something that has been dug out. Bomb shafts were dug under camouflage netting. The dugout sand was shaped like sand dunes. Cables for sensors were covered with sand and concealed using native vegetation, because the cables are easily seen from a satellite. They are dark black in cover, and they are in contrast to the surrounding areas that is brown or light brown in color. Then a very interesting story I read recently, the 58th Engineer Regiment, they had around 600 or 700 soldiers with them. What they did was they built a cricket stadium, they built a cricket pitch, they built a commentary stand, they built a stand for the spectators, they put up flags all around, and they gave it a look that we are having a cricket tournament. And they actually played cricket for many days. They were continuously playing tournaments, continuously matches were being organized. There was a mini IPL going on there. Why was this happening? To create a diversion, so that the satellite saw that okay, army personnel are bored and they are playing games, they are playing cricket. So while everyone was playing cricket, 5, 6, 7 soldiers, they went away from the cricket stadium, they went to the site and they did all the preparation activities. So it was done to create a huge diversion. Then the scientists who came from Mumbai or Hyderabad, they did not come to Pokhran in groups of 2 or 3, otherwise they will be easily detected. They traveled to destinations other than Pokhran. So they did not directly come to Jodhpur or Jaisalmer airport. First they traveled to Jaipur or maybe Ahmedabad, then they took the road route, and they all traveled under pseudonyms. They did not use their real names while booking the tickets. And later on they were transported by the army at the end stage. And Kalam Saab at that time was given the pseudonym of Major General Prithviraj, and Chidambaram was given the pseudonym of Major General Nataraj. So these were the names you see here. This is Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Mr. Chidambaram. Technical staff at the test range, everyone wore military uniform to prevent detection in satellite images. So these are all scientists. Again, another picture of all the scientists and the engineer engineer regiment soldiers. And behind you see, this is one of the testing sites, and you see it is covered with the net. So this is that camouflage net which has been used to cover a well. So below this structure there is the well where the testing was carried out, and this is a photo after the successful test. The actual bombs, they were built in Bombay, BARC. They were transported in Indian Army trucks from Jaisalmer airport. First they were brought from Mumbai to Jaisalmer airport, and from there in Indian Army trucks under the command of Colonel Umang Kapoor. And all the devices were relocated from Bark by 1st May 1998, and after that they waited for a perfect day. From the Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport, they were flown in an AN-32 plane to Jaisalmer. They were transported to Pokhran in an army convoy of just 4 trucks, and this required 3 trips. Why did not they use a larger convoy of 20-30 trucks to avoid detection? If 30 trucks are carrying something from the airport, it raises suspicions. That is why only 4 trucks. 4 trucks is usual. Even normal logistical activities of the army use 4 or 5 trucks. Then the timing of the tests depended on the local weather conditions. Why? Because the wind was blowing towards the town of Pokhran and other villages surrounding the test site. Now, although the test was underground, but some leakage would come above the ground. It had happened with all the other tests of USA and USSR that even underground tests had leaked radiation outside. You cannot completely seal off the ground. Okay, it is just not possible. So wind was a critical factor. The wind had to stop. So by early afternoon, the winds died down, and that was the perfect time on 11th May at 3:43 p.m. The first test was carried out, and after that the other 2 tests were also carried out. I remember I was sleeping in my home. My home is around 200 kilometers away from Pokhran. I also live in Rajasthan. So I was peacefully sleeping. My summer holidays were going on, and suddenly the entire house starts shaking. We thought it was an earthquake in the afternoon, but later on in the evening, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee came on the television and announced to the world that we have conducted nuclear tests at Pokhran, then we came to know that, oh, that was not an earthquake in the afternoon, it was a nuclear test. Now all these measures, these secret activities that I talked about, they are all being depicted in a Bollywood movie soon. It is coming out on the 25th of May, I think. It has John Abraham in it. The trailer is already out. The film is called Parmanu, the story of Pokhran. You can go watch it if you want. Don't go watch it if you're giving UPSC exam. Watch it later. Then coming to the actual bombs that were detonated. So in 11th May, 3 bombs, Shakti 1, Shakti 2 and Shakti 3, and on 13th May, Shakti 4 and 5. Shakti 1 was a thermonuclear device, a hydrogen bomb. It had a yield of 45 kiloton. It was a huge bomb. And second one was a fission device, a normal fission device, plutonium device yielding 15 kiloton. It was intended as a warhead that could be delivered by a missile. So we have successfully weaponized the technology. Third one was a small device. It was a tactical device, 0.3 kiloton. It means even the weight will be less. It will weigh somewhere around 100 to 100 kgs. So it can be easily transported and used as a tactical weapon. Again on 13th May, two further smaller devices were detonated, 0.5 and 0.2 kiloton. This is the test site of this Shakti 2. So you see the ground has gone inside. It has such a huge crater because the test site was below the ground. So the entire ground shook and even a layer of the ground melted and went down. And according to the engineers at the site on that day, the entire area, the entire Pokhran site was raised by a few meters. Imagine the entire ground raised up by a few meters when the blast happened, and then it again came down. It must have been like being at the epicenter of an earthquake. Here is our then Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He is having a look at the site after a few days. You can see the ground has such a huge crack in it. All these cracks developed due to the nuclear test underground. So he is being accompanied by senior ministers and army personnel at the test site. Again, this is a picture of the same spot. You can see the younger versions of all the BJP leaders. This is Pramod Mahajan. This is Mr. George Fernandez, I think. This is Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam and the rest of the leaders. And on 11th May in the evening, Vajpayee ji gave that historic press conference where he announced that India had just conducted 3 nuclear tests and they were successful, and it was a statement to the entire world that India is now in the P5 club. So we have joined that elite club where only a few countries. India was only the 6th country, remember, to have weaponized nuclear technology. So that this is a newspaper from 12th of May. This is Vajpayee's statements. Already there were talks of sanctions, and on 13th May the sanctions came. Pakistan was already preparing for its own nuclear test, and on 30th May, just 2 weeks after India, they also conducted their nuclear test and became the 7th nuclear weapon state. So India joined the P5 club, and Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State of USA, that is the Foreign Minister of USA at that time, famously said that India has dug itself into a big hole which it will find difficult to climb out from. And this statement turned out to be false, because within the next 8 years, India was already gaining the confidence of US, and we signed the Indo-US nuclear deal. By 2005 it was in the talks, and 2008 finally it was signed. So it was not that big a hole. India did climb out of it because of its deft diplomacy and its great attitude and a very stringent policy of no first use. India has been a very responsible nuclear technology state. And this is a newspaper clipping from 13th of May when the US President Bill Clinton and German Chancellor Mr. Kohl, they are talking about sanctions on India. So the sanctions came fast. And what were the sanctions? See, US stopped all kind of assistance to India except humanitarian aid. Economic and humanitarian aid amounted to about 142 million, and they even threatened that we will stop that also. They barred the export of certain defense and technology materials, so India could not buy any helicopters or warships or any kind of normal weapons from USA now. End of US credit and credit guarantees require the United States to oppose lending by international financial institutions. So wherever India was asking for loan in agencies like the World Bank, which had lent $1.5 billion to India in 1997, USA will now oppose India in all those financial institutions, and US has a huge clout in those international associations. Now coming to India's stand. What was India's statement or India's stand after the nuclear test? India clearly mentioned that we will always follow the doctrine of no first use. We will not use a nuclear weapon first. If someone else uses a nuclear weapon on us, only then we will retaliate. So if China or Pakistan tomorrow attacks us with a nuclear weapon, after that only we will use a nuclear weapon on them. We will never be the first one to use nuclear weapon or drop a nuclear weapon on Islamabad or Beijing or wherever. India has always regarded nuclear weapons as a deterrent. What is a deterrent? What deterrence means is, let's say you are a small kid, you go into your street and the other kids beat you up. One day, you go to the street with a stick in your hand, and at that time, the other kids think twice before approaching you, because now you have a stick in your hand and you can beat them up. So that stick is a deterrent, that is a weapon, and that is what nuclear weapons are intended. USA, USSR, all of those countries developed nuclear weapons during Cold War, saying that they are deterrents. No one will think of attacking USA because we have nuclear weapons. So similar was the policy of India, but USA and USSR said that no, that is wrong. So they themselves developed nuclear weapons as a deterrent, but they were against India using it as a deterrent. And India said that we we want to use these nuclear weapons as a deterrent, particularly against China and Pakistan. We have already had wars with them, and there will always be a risk of war with China and Pakistan, so we need nuclear weapons. Although these tests made India a nuclear power, but there was a price to pay, and this price has been paid by the villagers of Rajasthan. There are villages around Pokhran test site, especially the village of Khetolai, which has a population of around 3,000. Many people have got cancer after the nuclear tests. Every year, at least 8 to 10 people die in that village from cancer. And the government has not done anything for their health. And till today, till 2017-18, this is a concern in Khetolai and other surrounding villages. Now coming to the changing attitude of the world. Although everyone was against India, all the Western nations were against India in 1998, but India has proved to be a responsible nuclear power in past 20 years. India remains a reluctant nuclear power and believes that the world should soon rid itself of the most destructive weapons that humans have ever built. In 2005, Indo-US nuclear deal went into talks, and by 2008 it was completely signed. And in the past 2-3 years, India has also gained entry into the 3 major groups that were framed to keep India out of nuclear technology. So MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime, the Wassenaar Arrangement, and Australia Group. India has become a member of all these 3. If you want to know more about these, there are separate videos made for each. You will find them on StudyIQ playlist. And now the only group left where we are not a member is the NSG, and we are in talks for that also. Just that China is opposing us in NSG, that is the only problem. China wants Pakistan to also join NSG. So I think in the next 1 or 2 years, we will even become a member of the NSG. So that is a huge diplomatic win for India, and this is because of the restraint that we have kept with nuclear weapons. In 1999, Kargil War, the first war between 2 nuclear power states, India did not even talk of using nuclear weapons. So this was the restraint that we had, and that is why we are known as a responsible nuclear power. I hope you liked and enjoyed this video. If you did, kindly share it with your friends, spread the knowledge, stay happy, and have a good day.